Hello and welcome back to the Demis Hellen channel. In this video we're going to be taking a look at creating some trance atmosphere. This is sort of a base layer or a wall of sound that you have full control over in terms of levels to bring texture and clarity, character to your mix. So don't be the person that throws reverb onto plucks and leads and just hopes for the best. Let's create some proper trance atmospheres, and I'm going to show you how to do that right now. And if you have any questions about what you see in today's video, please let me know down in the comments. And with that said, let's get started. So here we have a few atmos building blocks. We've got a couple of vocal stabs. We've got like a string section that sort of has movement in it, but I've just located the first two bars where there's no movement. Then we have sort of a male vocal, like a sustained note, and then we have some vocal atmos here that I've just fed in through here using some freeze reverb. And if you want to check out freeze reverb, you can check this video out here on screen right now if you want to learn how to create your own atmos from your own leads, pads, etc. Now, one of the main keys for trance is creating an atmospheric environment for your track to be embedded into. And this can come in the form of just adding reverb to leads, plucks, pads, things like that. But sometimes you need a dedicated track space where you can mold and shape an environment that can operate in, and even move key as well, so you can follow the bass, you can follow the pads, whatever you want to do in your track. And it just overall makes your track sound a lot more professional. So let's have a listen to this. If you haven't seen this video already, this is from the Trance arpeggio video. And if you want to know how this arpeggio was made, you can check out the arpeggio monthly video, which is the June edition on this one. And it is the Sunny Pikes track here that we're going to hear now. Okay, so that's what we're working with. I'm just going to mute that down sweep there for now, keep the bass and this going, and I think we'll keep this more at an acceptable level, like maybe there, so it's not too imposing, but it's there to reference. Which will be absolutely fine. And that's going to give us some context on how to start building this atmosphere. And we're actually going to start with the Sunny Pikes atmos here. So this is created using freeze reverb and just capturing the first portion of this melodic sequence, and it has an unlimited reverb on it. And obviously I've narrowed this down to 8 bars. So let's add this in to our super bass and Sunny Pikes. I'm going to bring the level down. A more acceptable level where it becomes part of the background and not really imposing over our arpeggio or over any other elements that might be present. And we're going to start by adding some EQ, so I'm going to use a Pro Q3 on this one and create a high pass, and let's do it on a 6 dB. Okay, so that's not too thin, it's not too narrow, it just imposes enough onto the track that we can hear it. So next up, we're going to use some reverb. So we'll use some Valhalla Supermassive on this so you can easily follow along if you want to. And in fact, let's just go into verbs large. We'll just use splashy synth. I'm just going to roll out the lows to about 900 hertz-ish. That sounds alright. I'm not too bothered about the dip because the track is going to mask that up. But if you wanted to, you could overlap one beat like that. And then if you highlight both and hit X on the keyboard in Cubase, it'll create a crossfade for us and it'll make it more seamless. So that's entirely up to you. And then at that point, I'm happy with the Sunny Pike atmos for now. We can come back and tweak it once we've got other parts going. So let's jump into the first vocal. Let's have a listen to what this is doing. So you can hear that is a very simple vocal sample, and we're just going to smack some Valhalla Supermassive. This is going to be the theme today. We'll just use Supermassive for our reverb. Splashy synth again, and I'm just going to roll out some of those lows and probably just leave everything where it is. Let's see how that goes. Okay, I'm happy with that. The tail is fine, but what we can do is we can make this a little bit more, let's say an offbeat there maybe. Maybe even just there on that last beat. Then we have a secondary vocal here. And I'm just going to copy the same over, so we know these two are the vocals because we've got them soloed. I'm just going to drag Supermassive onto that for now. Alright, so I'm happy with that in a sense, but what I'm going to do, instead of having this hitting like that, I'm just going to go into the processes and reverse this. Possibly shove that before there. Let's just have a listen. Let's just make it a bit more seamless. I'm just going to get in a little closer. What we can do is we can overlap this. So instead of having this on, I'm just going to turn off quantize locking. So we have sort of like a manual crossfade here, but it's just going to make it a little bit more seamless before we start adding a few more effects to it to smear it over. And then from there, we could even make that hit on the beat now. So let's do this by beat. That's a nice little addition there. That wasn't how it was meant to be going, but I'm happy with that. There's no issues there. Might have to load another sample in there at some point. So let's go to the next one, which is this. There's a little change there. We could utilize that. Okay, so we could utilize that, but not in its current state. And what I'm actually going to use is pulse stretch. So if you haven't seen the video that I've done on this, you can check that on screen. But what we can do is grab a sample like this and drag it across into pulse stretch. Once it's loaded, we can then just mess around with the stretch amount, and you can see it's at 48 at the moment, and it's making this particular sample 9 minutes and 43 seconds long. Whereas originally it's, what, probably not even 5 seconds long. So you can see the power of this. So if we just pick a section, it's going to hold that note for a pretty long time. And to be honest, that's the last time I've used this, so I'm going to render this out exactly like that. I'm just going to call it Atmos Strings Video. You can see it'll just render it out based on the settings that you choose. I've got it out as a WAV. And then from here, I can drag in our Atmos Strings Video sample. And you can see that's created an immensely large file, which is fine. We can chop this down. So I'm going to zoom back in. I'm going to chop that first bit out. Doesn't matter where we chop it really. So there's no ramp in volume. And then I'm going to find that change in the sound where it changes chord. That's absolutely fine. We can just chop it there and there, for example. And then I'm just going to get rid of everything else. Okay, and we can just duplicate these two tracks like so. I'm just going to make a little bit of a crossfade like that, so it's a little bit longer. And we're going to make it manual like this. We could put them on the same track, but I want to process these individually and extend that one over as well, so then it'll ramp through. You get the picture. That's going to now sweep around in circles. It's going to be a bit clicky there because we're looping it at this point, but you can see it just flow into the next section. This way we have 2 samples now, and we can link these tracks or we can send them to a group. So for this one, I'm going to call this Atmos Strings C1, just for chord 1. It's not actually for the notation, C1. We'll call that C2. And then this way, if we select both, we can say send to a group channel, and we can call that Atmos Strings. That now goes through to a group channel, and on the mixer, we can now treat it as one track. On this group track, we can now locate Pro Q3, and we can start controlling our low end. And I'm just going to control a particular frequency. Not too fussed for this one, it's not really going too high and bothering me, but that is nice and tidy. And then the same thing again, if we just select our Atmos strings here, we can see our inserts here. Valhalla Supermassive. And again, let's go to reverbs. Splashy synth. Let's cut some of them lows out. A bit lower down. I'm trying to avoid the reverb reverberating too high on these because it sounds a little bit, just sounds too tinny and it's really obvious, and it's really hard to tame later on with EQs. Just tame it down if you've got the EQ built into your reverb. On top of the Sunny Pikes Atmos, if we put these together with our bass and melody, that's going to tie in nicely. We might do that a little bit faster, maybe every 2 bars or something like that, but we'll measure that later on. Let's put these 2 vocal lines in. I'm just going to quickly time stretch this one. So. Alright, so that is too slow. So I'm going to bring that back to here. Like so. Maybe even so, like that. So we have... Let's just see how fast that progresses now. I'm going to bring that back to halfway. I'm just trying to balance these things out so they sound a little bit more natural and free-flowing. See, this one just needs to end a little bit further back there. You can hear that's going round now, and that would click back in there if it was continuing in a loop. So that's much better, it's much more free flowing, and on top of all this, it's starting to sound really nice. So next up, if we just mute our Atmos strings, I'm going to colour these pink as well so we can see that they are in the same category. Okay, so let's put the strings at the top with Sunny Pikes. We've got the 2 vocal lines. So now we have the strings that are just on their own. I think we can get rid of this sample now. for now. And we're just left with this male vocal. Now, I don't know if this is going to fit. It was just sort of a wild card that I threw in there to see if we could do anything with it. So again, I'm going to stick some Valhalla Supermassive. You're getting the point now. I'm starting to just stick this on everything and just have a mess around. Maybe even just use Cubase's basic internal time stretching. Maybe not. Let's just listen to how this is going to fit into the mix. I'm just going to unmute everything here. This one I'm going to bring back a little bit. I think it needs to sort of come in a bit earlier. And then with this vocal, I think we could do something maybe with, let's just use a good old bit of glitch maybe. Something like that. And if we, it's been a while, initialize the whole thing and just have a little bit of gator on there maybe. And we're on the wrong track. Just bring up the mixer. Where did I put glitch? Here. With the positioning in the current track, you might have to move things around depending on where your track is starting. You can see mine starts here, I think, or here. So the end is going to be here for now. I'm going to bring the mix down a little bit there. Maybe just something simple like that. And it's going to be really distant, this is, so maybe we can put Valhalla after. And we're not bothered about timing, so we could throw the mix up a little bit. And then at the same time, we could put another instance of glitch straight after, so we can emphasize this gating a little bit more on top. And what I'm going to do is change that gator to about 30% mix. Bit of a fade. And then finally, we'll just finish off with a bit of Pro Q3. We didn't put this on at the beginning. I'm trying to remove some of the energy out of that top end. Okay, so we've got our base layers set up. We've got some nice atmos there. I wouldn't leave it there. I would probably add a few more bits in. We've got some pads to put in there as well. But just to give you the idea of the workflow that I'm going through to create some of these things and the tools that you can use. So with the Sunny Pikes atmos, I feel it can do with some movement, and I'm going to go very, very basic here and just put on the built-in auto pan. And we're going to slow the hertz down, something like that maybe, and narrow the width so it's not going too wide. Moves it off a bit. Still too wide. I feel this has got too much bass on it, this one, this vocal. I don't think we did any EQing on these ones. Let's just try that. So now we can boost the level on this. I think we turned the level quite down on this first one. You can see I'm now starting to blend these levels to the point that you can't actually hear individual sounds. Things are starting to blend more together. We don't want to hear a vocal stab. We don't want to hear a word in there. We want just a nice, gentle wall of sound in the background that's giving the track a platform to sit on, some atmosphere, and giving it tons of character and extra texture in there. And that brings us to the end of the video. I'm going to play you these parts without the atmosphere and with the atmosphere, and then we'll bring each element in so you can hear what it's adding in, because over the course of the video you forget what the original sounded like. And with that said, let's take a listen to what we have done, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.